What's up, Terran House? And today we are talking the Incarnon weapons. We're going to go over the build, we're going to go over how to get these, and we're going to go over why I picked these three for the steel path. Starting with these builds, in order to understand these builds, the first thing you need to understand is what makes the Incarnon weapons unique. Why do we call them Incarnon weapons? And that is because they all have this unique property where they can transform. So, if we read Evolution 1, headshots charge the Incarnon transmutation. Alt fire transmutes. Switching back will expend any remaining charge. So, these weapons have two profiles. Profile 1, which is their normal form, and then Profile 2, which is their Incarnon form. The reason why we take builds around these evolutions is these evolutions very much warp what you want to build on the gun. So, for Evolution 1, I've taken 20% fire rate. This is 20% base fire rate, which means that after you apply a mod like, say, Shred, which gives you 30% fire rate, it'll actually multiply this 20%. The base fire rate, if we move this over to Void's Guidance here, instead of being 3.6 that's modded, it's 3. So when we put on Shred, which will give us 30%, we'll get 3.9. But with Rapid Wrath, we'll take 3.6 times 1.3 to get, I don't know that math off the top of my head, but you get the idea. It'll take 3.6 as your base. After that, I've gone with Retribution's Vessel. This is a very mid option in general. Headshot kill giving 20% chance for an insta reload is kind of nice. Ready Retaliation is more or less useless. Like, it's okay. Reload speed is what affects your transformation. So you can, like, dump your magazine and then, instead of reloading, transform your gun and then reload after. I just think the extra 50% magazine is better. Personally, I think it's the best. Just not having as much downtime on your fire in your normal form. Unfortunately, none of these transformation, none of this evolution affect your Incarnon form, so you really do want to build this choice around your regular form, which means that Retribution's Vessel is the best. Elemental Excess. The reason why we take Elemental Excess for Evolution 4 over Incarnon Efficiency or Survivor's Edge is because of what you take rank 5. This gives negative crit chance plus status chance. Again, that affects your base. So this weapon gets a base 40% status chance. So when you will put on it a mod that gives 60% more, you're going to get up to that 60 whatever percent it is. It's important because for our last evolution, we will pretty much always take Devouring Attrition. 50% chance for a non-crit to do 20 times the damage is absolutely bonkers. It's way better than Spiteful Defilement, which only gives you 100% crit damage, which is, like, very useless, especially with this weapon's kind of mediocre crit multiplier. And then Lingering Judgment is just 2 headshots to get 50% more headshot damage. None of them come close to Devouring Attrition. This is times 20 damage. This is going to take your headshot multiplier from 3 to 4.5. Who cares? You can headshot with this, by the way. You can headshot this 20 times damage to get 30 times damage on the shot. This is just way better. Way, way stronger. Which is why we take this minus crit chance plus status, because we do not want to crit. And because we do not want to crit, we take a critless build. So we've got raw damage, raw damage. The way that I have this set up makes it so that all of my cold damage mixes with toxin, so that I always get viral, and then I have heat at the end. This is kind of a bit of a weird setup, but that is because I normally have this Riven, which changes my build slightly. But without the Riven, we just want cryo rounds, Hellfire, and then status, 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 viral heat, status. Galvanized Aptitude synergizes so well with this weapon because you already do not want to crit. You want to apply as much status as possible. So when we get our Incarnon transformation, that adds radiation. So we get slash, pure slash, heat, radiation, and viral. The fact that this weapon is pure slash in its Incarnon form is why we're still building viral instead of corrosive. Normally, when you do a weapon that doesn't have hunter munitions forcing slash procs, you want to build corrosive to punch through armor. This weapon does so much upfront damage that we still build viral, so that way when it does get that physical slash proc with 92% status chance, you're gonna kill some dudes. Next up, we have the Latum. And the Latum, again, we need to look at the Incarnon evolution before we look at the build. I have, again, opted for the 20% fire rate, but I will call out that the minus recoil on this might actually be better than the 20% fire rate. Movement while aiming is pretty much useless. If you don't want to run steady hands and you're cool with running, say, a vigilante mod, or not the vigilante mod, the ammo mutation mod or some other mod, I will call out that this is additive with steady hands minus recoil, so you can get no recoil on this weapon, so it's basically a straight shot every time. I still think the fire rate is just slightly better, and there are other ways to get rid of this weapon recoil. After that, I've gone with on headshot gives reload speed. I can see Awakened Readiness being good. Feather of Justice is not something we're going to look at all. This ammo efficiency does not affect the Incarnon form of the weapon whatsoever. That being said, it's very, very mid. Next up, we've got Evolution 4. I've opted for the headshot damage, Kaput Mortem, but you could go the Incarnon efficiency. I could see it working out well. Elemental Excess is the opposite of what you want to do with this gun, so we don't opt into Elemental Excess. Kaput Mortem or Incarnon efficiency. There is a status-based Devouring Attrition build for the Latum, because the Latum also does have Devouring Attrition, just like the Fenmore does. I don't use that build, because I build the Latum more as like a boss killer. And bosses tend to not care about being statused as much as regular enemies do. So I've gone with Overwhelming Attrition, which will give us 12 times the damage after we don't crit or apply a status. This means that you kind of have that sweet spot crit. Honestly, Prime Pistol Gambit should probably be regular Pistol Gambit for me. Because you want this kind of sweet spot where you don't crit too often, so that way you stack up Overwhelming Attrition, but you still crit when you have Overwhelming Attrition stacked up. I still think Prime Pistol Gambit is slightly better, just because I want those crits more often when I'm in my Overwhelming Attrition. But all of that is to say you don't want to use Creeping Bullseye, as this is going to give you too much crit chance for it to be comfy. And then we keep our status chance as low as possible. We don't want a status at all, which is why we've opted for 0 elemental gold mods. We've opted for the raw Deep Freeze, the raw Pathogen Rounds, and the raw Primed Heated Charge. This weapon kind of likes this. It will give itself corrosive damage on the explosion. This weapon transforms into kind of a mini rocket launcher. That is a machine gun that has impact damage. Because this has impact damage, you could go Hemorrhage for the slash on status effect. But you're running as low status as possible. Even with this build, you still get 59% status chance on the explosions. So you theoretically could use Hemorrhage for the slash procs, but I think it's just way better to run the shot speed of Anemic Agility. If you don't want to run Anemic Agility, this is the Flex mod. You could put all sorts of mods in here. You could go Accelerated Isotope. You could go Convulsion if you wanted to go pure viral radiation, although I think that's suboptimal. You could go Galvanized Shot just for that direct damage and use this with like a primer. You could go Hemorrhage. You could go the raw heat, the dual stat heat mod. You could go Prime Fulmination for the explosions on this weapon. You have some options. I've gone with Anemic Agility just because I really like the fire rate, but to each their own. I do have an Inodem build. but I am going to say you most likely are not going to be using the Inadem for offense. The reason why you grab the Inadem is in order to access Evolution 5 on the Fenmore and the Latum, you need to have a weapon, an Incarnon weapon specifically, in all 3 weapon slots of your loadout. The Inadem is the cheapest melee to acquire, which is why we've gone with it. You could, if you wanted to, build this out, and if you wanted to do the build for the Inadem, this is the build that I run. It's a pretty typical Blood Rush build. I do use Condition Overload. This could obviously be Primed Pressure. This could easily be Primed Pressure Point instead of Condition Overload. Like I said, I tend to use this with a primer, which is why Condition Overload is better. But otherwise, this is the build. Reach is something very, very much that you want on this weapon, because without reach, your range is 1.8, which is very, very short. It is a dagger. It does get range in its Incarnon form, but that kind of benefits it because it has 0.9 follow-through. Quick rundown on what follow-through is. This is the multiplier that applies to other people that you hit after your first. So you'll hit target 1 with 100% damage, and then target 2 gets hit with your follow-through damage, which in this case is 90%. Follow-through is a negative stat. But Blood Rush for crit chance, Weeping Wounds for status chance, Gladiator Might, and Amalgam Organ Shatter. This is my typical hybrid build with Dreamer's Wrath for that extra crit chance, and then melee exposure, just because adding corrosive damage onto a pure physical weapon is really good. The heavy attack on this weapon does have a forced impact proc, if I remember correctly. It tends not to matter too much, as you're just gonna melee these guys down. And the evolutions that I take on it, obviously taking evolution 1 +3 range does give you 8 range on this weapon, so it's essentially a polearm, which is really nice. And then you also get that 40% attack speed, which is nice. I've gone with 25% attack speed here. You could go Orokin Reach. I don't think it's necessary. Striking Swiftness is nice if you want to do more of like, this is a mobility tool kind of weapon. This does apply the whole time, even if you don't have the weapon in your hand. I did go with gain 5 combo for every 10 meters of continuous slide, but honestly, that's just because none of these are really useful. I'm actually probably going to start using Blade Twister more once they do the update to increase finisher damage. Next up, we've got Evolution 5. I just did Incarnon Amigo because getting Incarnon Evolution at 3 combo instead of 5 means that if you pair this with Ready Steel, you can basically always be in Incarnon mode, and these other ones just really aren't that good. Swooping Lunge is probably the best one, because when this weapon is in Incarnon form, it actually throws out these projectiles whenever you're doing airborne melee strikes. Protracted Execution, again, this one might be useful later on if they ever adjust finisher damage, and finishers in general, but right now, not really that good. And then collecting ammo to grant 5 combo counter. This basically just means that as you're using your other weapons, since this is more of kind of a support item, you can always keep your combo going. You can obviously, if you wanted to, go Stunning Brutality. Again, if they make finishers worth a damn. Currently, the reason why the Inadem suffers is you have all of these evolutions that are like, hey, do finishers, but then we tell DE that finishers are kind of terrible. Blood Anointed also requires you to do finisher, and this one's kind of like double useless because we have Tennokai now, which will just give you a free heavy attack as you're attacking with the weapon. So why do you need 40% heavy attack efficiency? Again, this weapon, we're not buying this weapon because we want to use it. We're buying this weapon because it will let us get our Latum and Fenmore fully kitted out. So let's go on ahead and jump over to Cavalero and look at his shop and kind of explain how you can acquire these weapons. Alrighty, guys, and here we are at Cavalero's shop. So, unfortunately, for some reason that I can't figure out, you do need to actually pick up the Inadem and the Fenmore for standing. Even though when you rank up from rank 0 to rank 1, you normally get to pick one of these rewards. And you do. You can take Eternal Eradicate, Cascadia Flare, and whatnot. But you can't take the weapons for some reason. So unfortunately, you will have to spend 3,000 standing on the Latum, 5,500 on the Inadem, and 6,000 on the Fenmore for a total of 1,450. Or 14,500. Which is very unfortunate. It would really be much better if you could just take these weapons with you. That being said, the most important one is going to be the Latum, because with the Latum, you can get Cascadia Flare, which is for secondary weapons only, that on heat status effect, you get up to 480% damage, and you can actually get a weapon arcane adapter without doing any steel path content. Normally, in order to get an arcane adapter, you would have to go to Teshin over here at a relay. Alrighty, and here we are at Teshin, and if we go into Teshin's shop, we can see that he has his steel path honors, where for the lovely price of 15 steel essence, we can buy secondary and primary weapon arcane adapters. Now, there is actually a way to get these arcane adapters without getting any steel essence, and that is by Acarthius. I don't quite know how to say your name, but the shop that we're going to jump to now. Alright, guys, and here is where you can access Acarthius, if you don't want to go through an entire run of Duviri before you access her shop. Maybe you went and killed the Aura Worm at a different time, because you know that her, you went and killed her last week while you're waiting on the cycle. But here, as you can see, she does offer arcane adapters. So what you can do is, on the regular path, kill the Aura Worm 3 times, which will get you 30 Pathos Clamps. And then you can wait for her shop to have a secondary arcane adapter. You could, of course, if you wanted to, go with the primary arcane adapter for use on the Fenmore or the Fellerex if you decide to go that route. This video is mostly going to be talking about the Fenmore, the Inadem, and the Latum, but I did want to show you her shop real quick just to show that it is available pre the steel path, which is the important part. If you're trying to get some content and you're trying to get some power-ups before stepping your toes into the steel path, getting a secondary arcane adapter so that way you can use the Cascadia Flare from Calvero is way better than trying to brute force a steel path run. So for actually building the weapons, you're going to need 2 main components: pinions, which come from the death of an angel, and quills, which come from the Zaramin bounties here. Ideally, this one right here, this is the tier 5 bounty where the levels are 110 to 115. The best one for this is to get an exterminate with the side quest of killing an angel. The thing with the bounties on the Zaramin is you just do a regular Zaramin mission, like this one right here where you have to do the exterminate, but you have a little side quest you need to do, which in this case is to find and activate 1 lock surge. That means that on completing this mission, on top of all of the other rewards that I will get, so you'll get 500 endo, maybe a void plume down, maybe your Gyre Neuroptics, you will also get 1 of the quills. But these missions do not give you standing. So this is the primary way that you're going to be getting your standing caps, is trying to do whatever this 5th mission is. This one is the hardest mission, but it is also worth 5 quills a completion, which means that for just the weapons, you're going to need to do 7 of these. 7 missions will give you the 35 quills that it will take to build the Inadem, the Latum, and the Fenmore. However, the other thing you will have to do is you need to get pinions. Pinions are the highest tier of the kind of, quote, syndicate level ups, and they look like this. If we go over to Archimedean Yanta, This is what the pinions look like, and this is the quills. The pinions are worth the most. They're worth 5,000 a pop, but you can only get these by killing a Void Angel. You can find one Void Angel per mission every time you run a Zaramin bounty. Alrighty guys, and here is the Void Angel. This is what they look like. They'll spawn randomly in the mission. Unfortunately, this guy is interrupting me. They will spawn randomly in the mission, and you can tell it's the angel because this is what it looks like. It'll have its hand to the sky, and when you walk up to it, you'll get this press X to wake Void Angel. When you wake it up, Calvero is gonna yell at you. Showing off the Latum real quick. So, with the Void Angel, she has several different attacks. She has several different things that she does. When she does this... Oh, my cat just stripped her armor. When she does this, you just want to go into Void mode and shoot the little ball out. That'll stop it. That ball will redirect your bullets, and it'll absorb the damage and redirect it back at you. Obviously, that can hurt. Oh, she did the attack. When she does this, she forces you out of your Warframe. All you need to do, Void Beam, shoot your Warframe a couple times, and it'll come free, or you can die and it'll free itself. Normally, I was going to show that Warframe abilities work on her by using my 2 to strip her armor, but my cat beat me to that. As you can see, I did use my 4, and then you just go into the little ball, and you fight her here. I do a lot of damage, so I'm going to not one-shot her so I can show her mechanics. All you need to do, jump through the Void Orbs, and then you will absorb them. She'll become vulnerable again, and you'll get this golden circle area wherever you land. Whenever you stand in this, you actually get a damage amp, which can help you. And then you just take her out. You'll go back into your Warframe, and you do the fight again. I still had that weird thing there. As you can see, this red mist shit will heal her. But Styanax is probably the best frame to fight these Void Angels because he has a built-in armor strip, and you can just hawk spears at them until they die. And you have infinite energy because you're Styanax. Your Void abilities will do minor damage, but if you have a setup like mine, you can 2-shot them. They do take headshot damage when you shoot them in the head. I probably should have gimped my damage so you guys get a better feel for this fight. But when they die, as you can see, they drop the pinion. That is how you'll get the pinions. You have to get them from killing the Void Angels. You need to kill a total of 21 Void Angels just to build the weapons. That's not even including if you use them to, like, turn into the Zaramin to get standing. But the best way to get standing is just to do the Quinn bounties. The one that gets you 5 on a completion is the best one to do. But anyway, that is how you get the Inidem, the Latum, the Fenmore, why to get all 3 of them, and finally, how to kind of kit out the Latum before you do the Steel Path. These weapons are, even without an Incarnon adapter, these weapons kind of tear the Steel Path apart, which is why you're going to want to grab them and go on ahead and put them up in your arsenal. But hey, that's the end of the video, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with whatever. I kind of don't care about that part, but go on ahead and make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. See ya.